Everybody, welcome back to Inspired Action Life podcast. I'm your host, Karen Baldridge, and I'm just popping on here for a really quick, short mini episode because I've been thinking a lot as we enter into 2024 here, how there were so many huge things that came out of 2023 for me personally. I don't know about you, but I know that a lot of people who follow, let's just say, like horoscopes or things like that, and I don't know a lot about it, but numerology and things like that, that 2023 was going to be, ahead of time, they knew this, one of those years where it was like a stillness was going to happen. There was going to be some real introspection that was going to happen. There was going to be some definite time to reflect on just going inward, because there's a lot of things that we run away from in life. And so when we run, we can only run so far before it finally catches up with you. And so I don't know about you, but that was definitely the case for me, not knowing that that's how the stars, had already had it written for me, because I didn't know that because I don't follow this. But I have a lot of friends who have been enlightening me on the whole, like, greater understanding of why life plays out the way that it does, and that there are some things that are somewhat forecastable. But anyway, it was going to be one of those years where there was going to be just a great deal of pausing and reflecting as to where you are now and where you want to go, instead of action, action, action. Because, like a lot of you, I am action oriented. I am an action person. When I get an idea, I want to act on it. Now, don't get me wrong, I collect all kinds of ideas and I don't act on every one of them, but I feel like I'm not doing anything, or time's getting away from me if I don't act and do something on at least one of them, or take real meaningful steps, or invest in something meaningful. So, okay, sorry, I had to jump off there really quick. My cat ran through here and kind of spilled my other plant all over the floor. Wouldn't you know, every time I get started on this, all of the busybodies start coming in here and have to scratch at the door and all the things. So they get me off my game. Anyway, here I am back again. But I think where I left off was just something around the fact that 2023 had lessons and pausing that needed to be done, because when you start acting on an idea that maybe isn't at your highest purpose, or isn't going to bring about the highest level of purpose that you were meant to on this earth, then all of a sudden things stop flowing. So, as they say sometimes, if it doesn't flow, let it go. And you know what? I have to agree with that, because it has been my experience that there is something, when something is supposed to happen, all the chips just fall right into place for me. I don't know about you, but all the things just line up for me, and it becomes easy. It doesn't become like a struggle, or it's not hard to make these things happen, and you have like all this energy around it and you get very excited and you could do it for hours. But when something is not supposed to happen, all of a sudden it will feel like you are walking through cement. It gets hard. It's like an uphill battle. And it's a different kind of hard. It's not like the things that you're supposed to be doing aren't hard, but they don't feel hard. That's the difference. They don't feel hard. So one of the things that I was starting to feel was like an uphill battle on all of these ideas that I was trying to bring about, and decisions I was making. I began to double back on them, going, this doesn't feel right. But I couldn't put my finger on what it was. My energy was just not in alignment with it. That's all I could say, or that's all I knew, is that it just wasn't aligned energetically, and it felt hard. And quite honestly, it felt like exhausting. It felt like, oh my God, I just want to sleep, like I don't want to even do this. It made me feel tired. So I guess that I didn't know all the reasons why that was. I just kept thinking, like, why is this happening? Why am I feeling so off, or, off kilter, or just not in sync with anything that I thought was the plan for me. So I was just going with what I thought my initial plan was. But I think that God had other plans for me. And so it was just a heavy year in a lot of different ways. I lost my mother, which it was not surprising, but surprising. She had really been on a downward spiral for about 9 months. So we knew that, we needed to start preparing for something that was going to be coming, but you never do know when it is coming. And that happened in March. And so ever since then, it really did sort of put the brakes on a lot of things. And I kept trying to force things because what was happening is when I was um, dealing with like her situation and trying to help her along in all of the struggles health wise and living wise that she had going on, all my energy and all of my creativity and focus was like turned towards her, which is what she needed, and that was where I was in that time and space. But my anxiety, right, was really starting to rise up. And the one way I could combat that is by taking action from ideas instead of from, you probably can't read this, inspired action. I was taking ego driven action, things that I know I should do to move the ball forward on some initiatives that I was trying to do, or some idea for business idea that I had that, or like another version of the business that I'm doing. To really strike out on. And I was taking all these actions and it just was not coming together. It was oh my gosh, it was such a struggle. And then I would get mad. So my thoughts were all of a sudden just getting really modeled. They were not in high vibe at all. I was salty. I was ticked. I was anxious because I could feel the clock getting away from me. And in my world at that time, even though some would say that time is a construct, like, there was no such thing as time or a day that's gone by or whatever. Everyone has different ideas on time, but all I knew was that I was very much in my body and dealing with the days ticking off the clock and off my calendar and me not getting anywhere. So that was my reality at that point. And my reality, now here's where I'm going to transition here. My reality was really matching my thought life. Okay, so my thoughts, do you think they were good at that point? No, they were not high energy. They were salty. They were like really low vibe, just a combo of, like I said, ticked off, but then also anxious and all of the things. All of those things were combining, but not any of them were consistently good. I'll say I had consistently, I had, I would string along a couple good consistent days, but overall my energy was creating what was my reality. And I was thinking, huh. So I didn't think about it at the time. I was just in survival mode though. Okay. So I was doing everything I could just to survive, to get through all of that, to kind of deal with the grief, start to put a plan in place and start to force things forward, move the ball forward and really think, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. Well, guess what? It didn't happen. It was not working. God was like, that's a big NO from me. You need to sit back and get into, as I was reading and listening to podcasts, there was one podcast that, you know how you like find things at just the right time and people say just the right thing, even though it's something that you've heard before, but this particular time it hit me directly, like a direct hit from a missile. It just went right to me. It was talking about the energy of like the masculine energy and the feminine energy. And then the masculine energy is when you're doing, going, checklist, knock it off the list and do this, and you got to do this or else you're never going to move the ball forward. And all these good things will come to you if you work, right? That's what the world tells us too. Like work, work, work. You're being lazy. You can't do all, how can you expect all these things to happen good for you if you're not doing anything? Okay, so that's conventional wisdom. Hard to argue, right? Pretty logical, pretty sound wisdom for humanity. But when we're talking energetically and spiritually, well, now that's a completely different story. Because what she was saying, again, not that I haven't heard this before, but in the way she was saying it, and at the time she was saying it, I needed to hear it in this way, was that you are allowed to have your season of rest and reception. So, what does that mean? That means that I had been in my masculine, so to speak, energy where I was planting seeds, doing the learning, getting the certifications, getting all the infrastructure, all the ticky tacky, business details put in place so that I could roll out what I thought was going to be what I wanted to do when I was kind of branching out of doing my consulting business and trying to kind of come into this space where not only am I doing, sorry, I don't know why this looks so crooked here. My podcast thing looks crooked. It makes my shelf look crooked, but it's really not crooked. Anyway, I was trying to do my podcast and kind of keep up with that, but you'll notice I had some real gaps in time there. But I was doing these things to roll out my programming for these events, and it just was not a thing. And so when I heard her message, it was more like trust the process. So trust the process, meaning that you have done the work when it was appropriate to do the work. So I'm not saying it's never time to take inspired action. Of course, it's time to act on inspired action, but inspired meaning that it is like it flows through you and it's like a download. It's not just coming from something that existed before and you're just trying to copy it or mimic it or something like that. You're like, oh, she's doing this. Maybe I'll try this. Or he's doing that. Maybe I'll try that. Again, you can get ideas from other people, and there's a time and a place when that will actually work. But when you're trying to create something that does not exist up to this point, you really need to lean all the way in to your intuitive voice and your intuition to bring about something in just the right way that only you can bring it into the physical plane with your special sauce that was only given to you because you are one of one. There's only one of you. And there has never been another one of you, and there will never be. You are a very special energy being with your own distinct hallmarks. And it needs to be perfectly aligned, and you can't get cornered in by the constructs of what time is down here, because in the ethers, in the heavens, in the spiritual world, whatever you want to call it, not everybody thinks like this, and I get it. And I get that it sounds kooky for some of you who don't. I get that. But even if you have some faith, you understand that you've heard, even in biblical wisdom, that God's timing is perfect, right? So you know that He's got the whole thing planned out, and all you have to do is follow the breadcrumb path. But when you go off here and start to go, well, there's more breadcrumbs over here, so I'm going to go. Well, that's great, but then eventually He's going to bring you back to the path, the golden path that is for you and you alone. And so I began to sit back and do something that was really foreign to me, which was just to be and to get into my feminine energy and my receptive mode and say, today is enough. Today, I am just going to be. Today, I am going to clear my energy space around me. I'm going to take on projects. I'm going to invest in myself. I am going to do self-care. I am going to do information gathering because I like to do that in my natural state. I'm a very curious minded person. I love to educate myself. I love to read books. I love to find new, interesting ways of looking at life and business and just kind of learn skills. And I've done a lot of that over the years, but I was always marrying it with other action. But here I decided to give myself permission to just be in 2023. So it wasn't until like the middle of the year, unfortunately, I was a little late to that. But I began to just be and be okay with what is. But then as time went on, um, that started to be really good. And I was doing projects in like a physical sense, like um, clearing out my spaces, like my closets, and remodeling like some rooms, and really just kind of getting my energy, which felt really like, I love to walk into this room because it's like perfectly aligned with how I like the space to feel and to look aesthetically. And aesthetics are kind of a big deal for me. My eye is really drawn to aesthetics and things that make me feel magic. Oh, kind of like, very like a sense of magic is in that room with me. So that was started to be enough. But then other things started to break apart. So don't be surprised when you get in those moments of stillness that other things will emerge. And those are the golden nuggets. That's exactly right there what God and the universe and energies or source is trying to bring to your attention. You have been going like 1,000 miles per hour, going Mach 90 through the howls and hollows of life, but you have never sat back and let him show you what he needs you to see within your own self. Meaning there is like feelings that you haven't dealt with, situations you haven't dealt with, relationships you haven't dealt with because you're running away from them. Why? Because they're hard. It's hard to deal with emotional things or relationship things. And all of a sudden, things were popping off one by one, one by one. I don't know what is going on with my hair here, too. Everything is like popping off. Like certain relationships were starting to fracture. Weirdly out of nowhere, like weird anxieties were starting to come up with other relationships that I had. And it was just such a bizarre time. I'm like, what is bringing all of this on? And suddenly I'm back in chaos again. But it was a different kind of chaos. It was an emotional chaos that was forcing me to deal with things that were going on inside that I have been pushing down. But when you push emotions down, here's another big key element. The body keeps score. Yeah, the body keeps score. It always knows. You might have thought you've cleared your mindset up and oh, I know how to manipulate my thoughts and all this, and I'll get to that too. But you can never outrun the body, because unless you clear and deal with and feel and allow those emotions to just flow over you and just kind of swallow you up, they will always stay present. And if you don't give them an exit ramp out of your body, those are the things that show up as illnesses, whether minor or major, or other breakdowns that you then have to deal with. Because one way or the other, it will make itself known to you one way or the other. So that is a definite takeaway from this, that the body is always keeping score. You might think you have dealt with this hurt, or you just compartmentalize it and put it away like so many of us do. Like I know I did. And then here it is, this big ball of all kinds of things that that came up, not only personal, like with like confidence and all the things that I have just been going, no, 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 that's not true. Or I would just not deal with it. Well, instead of asking questions, why do I feel this way? Going back in order to move forward. Like, why? What is the genesis of this emotion. Why do I feel sometimes that I get ignored, or I get disrespected, or I am constantly the people pleaser, constantly? And that's okay to a certain point, because I like to be kind and I like doing things for people and I like making people happy and being easygoing, because for the most part, that is not an act. I actually am easygoing. However, there is a limit and a boundary to all of that. So exploring, what is my boundary? How did I get here? Why am I so sad? Why am I so scared? And then like security issues started to come out. I think losing my mom and in the way that I did, and how she spent her last years. There was a lot of unsure situations financially with her and definitely lots of big gaps of emotional things that had not been met within her life, that she's kind of, pushing out there and projecting. I learned a lot. Let's just put it that way. When you lose a parent, and especially if you lose them in a way that has like their mental filter sort of gets taken away, you're going to find out a lot about them, which means you're also going to find out a lot about yourself. And so, how it is that you became the way that you became, and how you think, the way that you think has maybe brought about similar situations where you attract more of the things that you don't want, because you obsess and think about it so much that instead of clearing it, you attract more because your energy is aligned with the things that you're thinking about. So that was like, oh my gosh. So, it just uncovered a whole litany of insecurities and things that I thought I had in check, but clearly I did not. So, anyway, you have to go back and do, as many would call, like the inner child trauma healing. I never was like a fan of talking about that. I used to cringe at like self-help books that would talk about that, because I don't want to, just move on, move forward. I'm a big fan of like, hey, you're not a victim, move forward. You can't change the past. I would always say that. And while that I still stand by that, I still believe that fully. What is not exactly true is that you can't change it, but you can allow it to be. You have to make peace with it, and key point, learn from it, change the energy. Why? Because you're going to attract more and more situations that bring that exact feeling, whether the feeling is insecurity, whether that's physical insecurities or financial insecurities, or God, relationship insecurities, all of the things that can haunt you and bring, unwarranted and like you can't identify where these emotions are coming from, but all you know is you are overwhelmed by them and feel them. So there's a whole situation where I was forced to deal with all of those things, after I sat in silence, because I was finally quiet enough to let whatever wanted to come up come up. And then doing work around that, and working not only with journaling and meditation, my meditation practice, I really went strong into breath work and meditation and visualization to really kind of bring some next level knowledge back into the fray for me, because I was again going from the ego mind, and the ego just only knows what it knows. It knows things that have already existed. It doesn't create new things, because that comes from inspired action, right? You have to, that's the only way you're going to create new things, is if you get that download. But the egoic mind likes to take over because it likes to have you feel comfortable. It does not like to feel uncomfortable. So it compensates and compartmentalizes and protects you, right? Which is great because we need it too. But there are times that we have to override it. And that's what meditation, intentional meditation, breath work, and visualization does for you. It helps you override that egoic mind to really jump in and clear some of those things. And on top of that, I really kind of leaned hard into really holistic wellness and well-being practices and practitioners, Reiki, and like body work and functional medicine and just energy healers in general. I've tried a lot of things these last couple months, this last second half, and it has just been revolutionary. And here's the thing, like if I could think back to myself last January or 1 year ago, I honest to God feel like I am a completely different person. I mean, like structurally, DNA wise, all of it. Why? Because I am so overly focused on my thought life. Instead of gaining everyone else's thoughts, you'll attract everyone else's beliefs and attract everyone else's thoughts instead of having your own thoughts. You'll follow their thoughts. And I think I was falling into that a little bit. Instead of creating new thoughts of my own or new belief patterns, I was just following the ones that everyone else around me had, even though I thought that I wasn't. I was. So it's there is a quote I just wrote. Oh yeah, let me look back at this. There is a quote that I love that I ran into, and it's about your thoughts and like language and the words that you use and how they essentially like shape your reality. And so I just want to make sure I quote this right because I did a post about it, but I want to nail this quote because it's so important. Language doesn't just describe reality, it creates the reality that it describes. Let me say that again. Language doesn't just describe reality, it creates the reality that it describes. So your words and your thoughts become things. Your thoughts, feelings, and words, they're like a whole cohesive system. And if you aren't, I mean, absolutely locked down, vigilant about changing your thoughts and recognizing programming when you see it, all of the things that you are programmed with. Oh my goodness gracious, programming. That's a whole other episode. In fact, I'll probably make an episode on programming about this because you are programmed in so many ways that you don't even realize that you're programmed. Like what is possible for you has been pre-programmed, not only from your environment, maybe from your family, from your schools, from society in general, of what is possible. Well, that's not logical. That's not possible. Nobody in our family has done this. You can't make that much money. That's impossible. How are you going to do that? How are you going to make this happen? All of their disbelief is projected on you, and you just go, oh, yeah, you're right. That is dumb. That doesn't make sense. You're right. And you'll absorb all of their negativity, right? You're going to absorb that and you're going to take that on as your belief. When in fact, when you wake up to this other understanding of how your thoughts create your reality, you'll start to examine everything in your reality going, gosh, why isn't this working out? What have I been doing that has drawn me to this place where I keep hitting a wall, hitting a wall, hitting a wall? It's kind of unnerving, but at the same time, quite satisfying to know that I'm hitting the wall because I created the wall. I literally made that wall brick by brick, but I didn't know I was doing it because I was in a program. Everything is a program. Everything that you're doing, thinking, being, not only about money, but about relationships. What's possible for you? I'm not good enough for that person. I'm not cute enough for them. I'm too, your relationship with yourself. Like I look terrible. I'm just, ugh. I mean, look how overweight I am, or look, I look terrible in those jeans or that sweater. My skin looks terrible. And all of the things that you believe them because you're programmed, because you are projected upon by images that you're consuming. You're consuming images of people who look perfect. And so, therefore, you have zero self worth when it comes to comparing them against yourself because you're not, in your mind, measuring up. But that is not necessarily the reality of the situation. But your energy says, yes, I'm not enough. So, what are you met with? You're met with situations and people who think you're not enough. What about that? How alarming is that? That now you have to go back and examine all of your business dealings, your special, like, intimate relationships with your partner or spouse, how you've parented your kids, your programming, and how you have passed that programming down to your kids. Yikes. Fears and all. I transferred a lot of like fear-based things down to them, and maybe some manipulation because of my fearfulness and all the things that kept me nervous and scared. I would cast this whole story as to why they should also be scared, when in fact maybe they don't have to, maybe they should. There's some common sense fear things that obviously we need as parents to guide our kids, for common sense things that maybe they just don't know about that we do. But in general, it really doesn't pay to have them live in fear, because then they're going to be at my age looking back going, why did my mom always make me feel fearful? And then they're going to have to deconstruct the whole narrative, and not because they're not going for things because, well, what if you lose all your money? Well, you can't do that. That's too risky. You can't. Okay, so I'll just not do it and then keep the same old until the day that I die, and I won't elevate at all. I'll just keep this, and we end up getting in survival mode where we win the game of life if we survive. Well, I've got news for me and everybody else. You don't survive the game of life, because everybody has to meet their end. Every one of us has to. We try not to do it prematurely, and that's not really the goal, to get there prematurely. Obviously, life is a big ball of excitement and fun and adventure and everything, and it has so much promise. But a lot of times we limit everything around us because we're doing like a prevent defense, where we're just trying to prevent disaster instead of invite adventure. Preventing disaster in lieu of inviting adventure. Yikes. And so somehow my spirit knew that. And I kind of woke up to that reality that a lot of times that's kind of what I was doing, I was definitely doing that. So I'm going to do a part 2 of this, but I just wanted to kind of give you an update energetically of what 23 looked like, to see if this resonates with you. And I'm going to pick up on the next episode about this, about how, adventure is concocted by us, because there is a belief that all things work out for me, instead of, oh, I should be worried and I hope that things work out. There has to be the shift where I know that all things work out for me, that everything is meant for me and will not happen to me. Things don't happen to me, they happen for me. And if you can make all decisions through that filter, I wonder how much different your life could become. Because this is, I'm told, energetically like a year of 8, like a year of action, numerology wise. So again, don't know much about that, but I listen, and I'm always open to inspiration and knowledge from all different sources, and I take it and see how it feels in my spirit. So I make decisions through how it feels. So this year is action, but only inspired action only. I will be very still. I will take the skill of pausing, press pause, and consider how it feels in here instead of up here. Because even when it feels good here, It may not make sense up here, but I have to shut this down because now I'm going to take control of my programming. I'm going to shut it down for a little bit and work from here. And sometimes that takes hard decisions, things that are crazy choices that you have to make that you would never even think are the right thing, but somehow they're going to be the right thing, but you just have to have enough courage and belief in the process that they will come. So I'm going to continue this. And I just wanted to jump on here because all these things are flooding my head. I've got a new program coming called The Game of Life. All of this information and everything else that I've learned throughout my coaching career is going to be rolled into this, kicking off in February. I could not be more excited to share this with all of you because it is like a situation where it's like my life's wisdom, my life's work in this virtual program. And I'll give you more information on that on the next podcast episode. But yeah, I'm super stoked. Lots of hard and heavy things have happened, but it has been all for the good. And I just, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to share some more of my insight with you here. So take care until the next time. It'll be very soon because I'm going to do a part 2 here in just a little bit. So have a great week, everyone, and I'll check in soon.